Okay, this game is a wonderful positional display by Checkover against Rudakovsky, who is another one of these players from that time period. And I think everyone can certainly learn something from this game in terms of piece strategy, how to place your pieces. But, okay, for now, this is just the opening. It's a Queen's Gambit decline, orthodox defense. This was like the main opening at this time period. Almost all games where you were faced, you played the Queen's Gambit, you would almost always get this Queen's Gambit decline. Now, and in like the 50s, 60s, people started playing the King's Indian, like Bronstein started playing it, and then at some point, the King's Indian just like, it got out of hand. Everyone started playing. Like Fischer took it up. Fischer swore by it. Then Kasparov started playing it. And when Fischer and Kasparov, we're talking about two titans. When they start playing an opening, everyone starts playing an opening. And then it became like very popular. Very popular. But most of the time back here, it was all Queen's Gambit declines for the most part. And sometimes Nimzo, but mostly Queen's Gambit decline. So Queen to C2, we see the waiting game again, but Checkover doesn't waste his time. He just brings the bishop out. Black takes and plays knight to D5, and this is a common strategy, which is when you suffer from a space disadvantage, you try to trade some pieces off. So that's what Black is trying to do. Here's the thing, though. Black, although he has traded some pieces off, he has not traded the one that he needs to be trading off, which is, once again, which one of Black's pieces. So he is slowly getting some pieces off, giving his pieces a little bit more space to operate with, but there's still an Achilles heel within his position. And once again, it's the light squared bishop. That's right. It's the light squared bishop. It's the struggle for, honestly, most defenses to d4, the struggle is the light squared bishop. So that's pretty true. The dark squared one usually gets out. The light squared one is usually a problem in many openings. So, okay. So Rudakovsky played the move b5, and the idea of this was to try to place the bishop here and eventually open up the bishop on a nice diagonal. Problem is, this is a bad strategy, and this game shows it why. So bishop to e2 was played. a6. Now, I really like everything that Checkover did here. I think it teaches us a lot about chess in general, but not just positional play. So, what does Black want to play after a6? Black actually wants to play the move c5. Specifically, c5. And the reason why is Black needs to play c5 as fast as possible before White can stop it from happening. So c5 ensures that this diagonal is open for the bishop. If Black can never play c5, this bishop's going to be screwed for a long time. So Black wants to play c5. He needed the move a6 because a6 guards the pawn on b5. So for example, on the previous move, if you go c5 immediately, you lose this pawn. So a6 was a clear message that I want to play c5. Okay, Black wants to play c5, so this is the second lesson to be learned in chess, which is that so in chess you have two things that you could two things that you could possibly do in a chess game. You see your opponent's idea and you can either allow them to do it if you think it's okay, or you can stop them from doing it. We call that prophylaxis. You stop your opponent from carrying out their plan. So I think you should stop this, because if you stop that, you ensure that your opponent has issues. So what did White play here? What did White play here? Very good, everyone. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So knight to e4. Very good, very good. So Egan, b4 would be good, but you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose that. So So yeah, so it's knight to e4. And now white is doing a really good job of clamping down on that c5 square, making it very hard for black to free themselves. Very good. So bishop to b7. You know, black is still hopeful that one day they'll be able to play the move c5. Well, white was like, checkover was like, I am never going to let you play c5. This knight supports you in playing the move c5. So, here you go, knight e5. Let's trade those knights off. I'll trade you this one for that one to ensure that you're not going to be able to play the move c5. You could play c5 anyway, but it would cost you a pawn. So, rook to c8. Checkover's like, okay, I'm trading that knight, and you're not going to play the move c5. You're really not going to play it now. Yeah, black could not play c5. There's one. If black played c5 here, that loses a piece. That loses a pawn. Now, you could say that black is in such desperate need that he has to give away a pawn just to open up the bishop, but white's just going to stuff that bishop and create a passed pawn. So, you can't play c5 there. After bishop to b7 and knight e5, you can't play c5 here either. c5, we take on d7, I'm hitting the rook, you take back, and I win that c5 pawn. Now, again, you could argue it's worth it because at least my bishop comes out, but you're still giving away a pawn. And in most cases, you're going to lose a game when you give away a pawn so early. You know, you're going to go on to lose the game pretty easily. So black is trying to maintain the material equality, and black played the move rook to c8. Well, again, in all cases, the knight's coming into c5. So knight takes, and now knight c5. Now this is pure positional domination. Yeah, if you take the knight on e5, you're still not playing c5. And now we also get the d6 square as well. So again, very bad for black. Yeah, if f5, we take the knight. I guess you mean here, f5. Still knight c5. Yeah. This might be a little bit better, but it's not great. So it at least keeps things closed, but black is going to suffer for a very long time here because black cannot develop the pieces. This is a definition of bad bishop, blocked in by all these pawns. So yeah, tough stuff. e5, well, e5, first of all, there's an attack here, but e5 sort of goes against the grain because you've already played all these moves, so now to switch and go e5 when all these pawns are very weak, that's e5 should have been the break that black played in the opening. Black has already committed himself, so black just needs to try to deal with it at this point. But yeah, knight to c5, and you guys can see here that once this knight has established itself on c5, which ensures that black isn't going to be able to play pawn to c5, black's in dire straits here. Black is in trouble because black's playing without a piece. So rook d8, rook c1, white is developing all the pieces. Bishop to c8, queen e4. Again, a nice prophylactic move, stopping the move e5. Knight f6, queen h4, and now e5 should have been played. It does allow queen to g3, and probably going to lose a pawn there after knight to d3, but okay. Maybe it was necessary, but once again, Rudakovsky didn't want to give away a pawn. So queen a5 was played. a3. b4, black is trying to open up some squares on the queen side, and white said no. I love this. I love this game. I remember showing it to so many students. Basically, the idea is, again, black is playing without this piece. And white is not going to help him open anything up on the queen side as a distraction. So knight to d7, pawn to b3. He said, sure, you want to trade knights off? I'm still going to clamp down on that c5 square. You are not getting this bishop into the game. So black took, white took. The situation hasn't changed. Pieces have been traded down a little bit. The situation hasn't really changed that much. This bishop is still really bad, and now, white is very active both on the king side, on the queen side, and playing with all the pieces while black is just playing with one. Queen goes back, we double up on the pawn. Bishop goes back to b7 to guard the weakness. You can see big struggle here for black. Black's strategic play has failed completely, and you're able to see that very clearly here. Pawn to a5. I love that move. I love that move because he's saying, I am never going to even give you the opportunity to play a5 and bishop to a6. Not that that would even be good right now, but I'm never even going to give you a chance to do that. I am going to suffocate you within your own position. So a5, queen goes back, and then this is like a picture of beauty here. I wedge the pawn on a6. You're not getting out that way, right? You're not getting out that way. You're not getting out this way because I'm blockading you. The only chance you might have is to get out on this diagonal, but your own pawn is blocking. Pure domination by white. And now white did exactly what you're supposed to do. White says, now that you're tied down to the queen side and you're playing without pieces, I'm going to trounce you on the king side. He starts with bishop to d3, which is not an overly difficult move to play. Seems very logical. Pawn to g6. Places the queen into f6. There's a little bit of la here. And now, how does white fracture the king side? Because you have to see that black is stuck to passive defense, but white needs to open up the king side a little bit more. What did white play? I've given a whole lecture on this on Thursday, Chess Ideas You Must Know. I gave a whole lecture on this concept of using your rook pawn even when you're castled to attack. Very good, guys. h4. Yep, it doesn't hurt anything to go h4, h5. Your king remains safe. This pawn structure remains intact. And all you're trying to do is you're trying to mate the guy. And honestly, if after h4 you go h5, then you've weakened your king side pawn shelter quite a bit. And in fact here, there's already a knockout blow. Bishop takes g6. And then the rook comes over. Just showing how the elimination of one pawn from black's king side can cause black's king side to crumble completely. And essentially, that's what white is trying to do. White is trying to eliminate one pawn from the king side and then hack the king side away with the pieces. Rook to d7, queen comes back to f6. Now there's an additional chance of checkmate on g7, weak dark squares. Queen comes back to a8. The idea is to be able to defend the dark squares. Bishop to e4. I love this move. White is just completely dominating the game here. Queen e8. h5. We knew that was coming. If you take, you just open up your own king. So black has to sit. Rook to d8. Finally, white cashes in, and I love this intermediate move. So black is guarding this 3 times. White is only attacking it 3 times, but the queen is now about to be overloaded due to the move h6. The only way to stop this brutal move would, let's say, be to play queen f8, but then the queen doesn't guard the bishop anymore. So black tried to bail, king f8, but what did white play here which wins the game? So white to play and win, and Chekover finished what he started here by crunching black with the basic tactics here at the end to finish the game. What did white play? Very good. Rook takes c6 first. Because if you go queen h8 first, after king e7, if you trade queens, I can take back with my bishop. and then black wins, showing that most of the time you're just one move away from screwing up a chess game. So it's rook takes c6 first, because this rook in the end is going to be unprotected. You'll sort of see. Rook takes, rook takes. Now, if you take here, I take there. So rook to d7 was played, and now white played and knocked him out. White to play and crunch black completely and make him resign. I love this move. This is an awesome move. Very good. Very, very good, everyone. Yes. Rook c8. Awesome. Boom. Ouch. I love that move, though. The idea is if you take this, because you sort of have to, you're in a pin. If you take this, now I hit you with queen to h8, and I skewer you. It was a setup. So he resigned. I mean, that was a beautiful game by Chekover. I mean, you can't get much better than that.
Hi, I'm Peter Giannatos, founder of the Charlotte Chess Center. Be sure to subscribe or risk losing a knight in your next chess game.